Notoriously violent and, in some areas, dangerously overcrowded, the prison has earned a telling nickname. It's called the Arena.
Number 10. Lante Prison. Located in Paris, Lante is anything but your typical prison. Since its inception in 1867, it has been the site of several riots, executions, and escapes. According to prison doctor Veronica Vasseur, inmates often suffer from health issues due to several factors, including poorly ventilated cells and only being allowed to take showers twice a week. Living conditions were so terrible at Lante that many prisoners have attempted to take their own lives. Given these circumstances, we truly find it hard to believe that a prison would include the French translation of the word health in its name. Number 9. Kwang Central Prison. Just north of Bangkok, Thailand is Kwang Central Prison. Opened in 1933, Kwang houses Thailand's execution chamber and is notorious for its high-risk and dangerous criminals.
It's been the subject of novels and movies, but the Thai authorities have never allowed the reality of life inside these walls to be filmed.
Historically, prisoners were typically forced to have shackles welded to their legs to prevent escape, though these regulations were changed in 2013. Still, the overcrowded inmates are all squeezed into small cells, and torture is reportedly commonplace.
In the last few years, the prison's population has trebled because of a government crackdown on drug trafficking. 7,000 men are now packed into a prison built to hold around half that number.
Past inmates have told stories of guards beating mentally ill, elderly, and pregnant prisoners, and malnourished inmates attacking each other over anything of value.
Many will die here, and many more will be put to death.
As for the meals, well, the term maggot-infested seems to come up a lot. Number 8. Deaker Prison. Located in southern Turkey, Diyarbakir is one of the most inhumane prisons in the world, owing to rampant and systemic prisoner abuse. The prison is notorious for overcrowding, and prisoners are often subjected to various forms of torture, including sleep deprivation, physical beatings, and even a dog that was trained to bite genitals. Medhi Zana, the former mayor of Diyarbakir, who spent over a decade in the prison, revealed that new prisoners were thrown into a bathtub full of human waste. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Things were especially bad when Diyarbakir served as a military prison in the 1980s, with many killed by guards and dozens taking their own lives. Number 7. Sabaneta Prison. This prison in Maracaibo, Venezuela was an extremely violent prison that operated from 1958 to 2013. Built to house just 700 prisoners, Sabaneta was home to 3,700 by the time it closed in the early 2010s. The prison was entirely run by the inmates themselves, complete with a hierarchy of gangs and leaders known as prans. One of the prans was Mocho Edwin, a man who had committed triple homicide in the late 2000s. Naturally, the prison was rife with violence. In 1994, inmates intentionally started a fire and killed those who tried to escape, reportedly resulting in over 150 deaths. In 2013, the final year of the prison's operation, 69 prisoners were killed by other inmates. Number 6. ADX Florence. Located in Fremont County of Colorado, ADX Florence is a supermax prison, one level higher than maximum security, and housing the absolute worst criminals in the country.
It's known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. It's considered the country's most secure prison.
These criminals are often extremely violent and typically pose a serious threat to prison staff, other inmates, or even national security. Florence houses just 359 prisoners, each of whom is kept in a small concrete cell for 23 hours a day.
What does 23 hours a day by yourself do to your mind?
Well, it's going to warp it in some ways, the same way, because it's a traumatic experience.
Mental health often deteriorates inside the cells, and at least 8 inmates have apparently committed suicide over the years.
The few who have been inside and made it out call the Supermax life after death. Others say it's a clean version of hell.
Some of the prison's most notable inmates include the 1993 World Trade Center bombers, numerous terrorists with links to Al-Qaeda, the Boston Marathon bomber, the Unabomber, Terry Nichols of the Oklahoma City bombing, and Mexican drug lord El Chapo.
You'll remember this surveillance video of El Chapo escaping through a tunnel dug under his prison cell in Mexico in 2015. No such luck with Supermax, it's built into solid rock.
Number 5. Carandiru Penitentiary. Built back in 1920, Brazil's Carandiru was once South America's largest prison, housing more than 8,000 inmates. The prison was infamous for its poor quality of life, rampant health issues, and numerous human rights violations. The latter eventually culminated in the Carandiru Massacre. The event began after a game of football as a fight between two teams escalated into a chaotic prison riot. The military police were called in and proceeded to massacre the inmates, many of whom were unarmed and killed in defensive positions. By the end of the riot, 111 prisoners were dead, riddled with 515 bullets in total. Over 60 police officers were convicted for their crimes, but the trials have since been deemed null. Number 4. Monga Prison. Formerly known as Guantanamo Prison, Rwanda's Monga Prison was built to house just 400 prisoners, but ended up housing 7,000. As you can imagine, living conditions inside the prison are deplorable, and many prisoners suffer from gangrene owing to the filthy accommodations. Given that they're often forced to stand all day on the wet and dirty ground, the health complications are many and severe. There have even been reports of cannibalism. Brigitte Troyan of the International Committee of the Red Cross has succinctly stated, quote, "The conditions here are completely inhumane." Number 3. San Quentin State Prison. Serving as the oldest prison in California, San Quentin was opened in 1852 and remains one of the United States' most infamous penitentiaries.
Notoriously violent and, in some areas, dangerously overcrowded, the prison has earned a telling nickname. It's called the Arena, and it's where California's most vicious criminals square off.
It's known as the most populous death row in the country, with the New York Times even deeming it, quote, the largest in the Western Hemisphere. Since 1893, over 400 people have been put to death in San Quentin.
I was an evil person. I don't know any other way to put it. I didn't care for other people's lives. I was an adult and I chose to do what I did.
It's housed some of the most dangerous men in America, including Charles Manson, Richard Ramirez, and Richard Chase. The prison is also notable for being extremely old, outdated, and dirty, with prisoners receiving poor health care.
Out in the general population of the prison, inmates get yard time for just a couple of hours twice a week. Other than showers and meal times, these are their only moments outside their cells. A chance to socialize and make allies.
Number 2. Alcatraz.
12 barren acres in the middle of San Francisco Bay. In 1934, it seemed a perfect place for an escape-proof prison for America's worst criminals.
Although it closed all the way back in 1963, Alcatraz was notorious in its time and remains one of the most iconic prisons in the world, owing to its reputation and unique setting. Located on Alcatraz Island just off San Francisco, the prison's remote and secluded location made it the perfect place to house high-risk and dangerous criminals.
Despite huge risks, overwhelming odds, and sometimes certain death, prisoners continued to break out.
Life inside the prison was said to be hell, with many prisoners going insane and committing suicide owing to the relentless violence and poor living conditions.
This wasn't a prison of rehabilitation. This was a prison of punishment, strictly punishment. We weren't sent here for our crimes that we committed out in that free world. Technically, we were sent here for crimes that we committed in other penitentiaries.
It eventually gained the nickname Alcatraz owing to its reputation, and it housed some of the most notorious criminals of its day, including Al Capone, Mickey Cohen, Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, aka the Birdman of Alcatraz. Number 1. Guantanamo Bay. Located off the coast of Cuba, Guantanamo Bay was opened in 2002 under the direction of President Bush. Following the September 11th attacks, Bush initiated the War on Terror and opened Guantanamo Bay to serve as a military prison.
Signs of non-compliance are clear to see. Bodily fluids stain the ceiling where prisoners tried throwing them at guards. Servicemen now use face masks, and extra barriers have been put in place between prisoners and staff.
The prison has received widespread criticism for indefinite detention without trial and the routine use of torture. including waterboarding and sexual abuse.
As concerns grew about detainee treatment, the world was told the same thing.
The detainees are not choir boys.
They are believed to be determined killers.
These people are terrorists.
They're terrorists. That's the only thing I can say. They're terrorists.
There have also been reports of several suicides and of numerous suicide attempts. Under the Obama administration, the number of inmates was reduced. However, Guantanamo Bay remains open.
For many years, it's been clear that the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay does not advance our national security. It undermines it.
Amnesty International has called the prison a major human rights violation, describing it as, quote, the gulag of our times.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.